What's going on, guys? My name is Luis Raza, and welcome back to another episode of Crushing It, a podcast dedicated to inspiring young individuals to pursuing their passion by showcasing other individuals who are doing exactly that. Again, I'm your host, Luis Raza, but before we jump into today's episode, I want to give a huge shout out to this season's sponsor for Crushing It, the Herb Keller Center of Entrepreneurship here on campus. Now, they're the starting point and the launch pad for everything related to startups. So whether you need founder resources, you're looking for funding for your business, or you're just looking for a mentor or some investor to pitch your idea to, they're the place to go, regardless of what stage of the journey you're on in terms of being an entrepreneur. So make sure you visit the link in the description below. And if you can't find anything there to help you, just comment what your idea is, what you need help with, and I'll go ahead and connect you with them. Now, on to today's episode. Now, today's guest is both the beast inside and outside the gym. Over the past year, he has garnered over 3.4 million views on YouTube, as well as 21,000 subscribers. In his free time, he has coached over 200 people through his fitness program, Lyons, given 600 speeches across the country, and invented an upper body cardio machine. As his phenomenal journey here on the 40 Acres comes to a close, from doing pranks in the PCL to hosting fitness classes, a new one starts for him at Microsoft next year. Please join me in welcoming Patrick Lyons. Before we get into it, I just want to ask you, what's one interesting thing about you that most people don't know?
Something that most people don't know. That's a little bit difficult because I share my entire life online. But for things that people don't know about me, I guess I'd kind of have to go back to when I was a lot younger. I only recently shared this online, but I had a lisp. And I had a lisp so bad to the point where, my elementary school musical theater director told me that I was never going to get a lead role in a show in high school because of that lisp. And so I kind of worked to prove her wrong, went to speech therapy for years. That's something people definitely don't necessarily know about me, that I legitimately was going to speech therapy every single week. I had teachers who would give me hand signals during class to tell me that I was having a lisp, and just gradually worked to get that gone over time. And then I got a lead role in a High School Musical, and public speaking is now a huge part of my life.
And how did you gain that confidence back after having the lisp and then not having it anymore?
I have always been very goal-oriented, and so though I liked musical theater just as a hobby, it was also legitimately something I wanted to pursue with my life at the time. So all the way up until 8th grade, my life's dream was to be on Broadway as a Broadway star. And so if my elementary school musical theater director is telling me that I can't even get a high school role, there's no way I'm going to get a role on Broadway. So it was kind of if I don't do this, I'm not going to achieve my goals. So that was kind of a forced confidence, but it became real.
Okay, and Heart of a Lion, that's your saying that you live and die by. What does that entail? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so Heart of a Lion is the concept that even the smallest jungle in the wild can grow up to become this massive, incredibly powerful thing. But that incredibly powerful lion needs to remember where it came from, needs to remember its life as that cub and kind of know that journey and use that to keep them humble. That's what the Heart of a Lion is about. It's that, yes, you can grow in whatever your passion is or whatever your area of inspiration is, but if you get to a point where you're successful, you aren't necessarily benefiting the world as much as you would if you remembered where you started. That's
okay.
The Heart of a Lion.
And so that takes a certain level of being very used to understanding all of these things. And most people don't get to that level where you understand that you have to go through, a bunch of obstacles and whatnot to get to where you are, right? And so that just brings me to, were you always very motivational, very goal-oriented, or where did this begin? Where did you start having that mindset of nothing can stop me, I'm the guy in the jungle, and the Heart of the Lion, all of those things, the sayings, did that all come eventually over time, or did it start at a certain point?
So I think for me, it genuinely has been kind of innate all the way back since about 2nd grade or so. And the reason I say that is because in the 2nd grade, I took an IQ test, and if I remember correctly, I didn't test well enough to be in the gifted and talented program. And so me being a 2nd grader, I see this small subset of my classmates go off to GT every week, and I just thought why am I not a part of that? That really frustrated me. And so all the way back going to 2nd grade, I started actively working to improve my grades. I had bad, quote unquote, bad grades in 2nd grade, maybe B's and C's or whatever. Mm-hmm. And ever since that mindset shift of I want to be in that group, I got pretty much all A's from then on out. And then I retested in the 4th grade, and I not only surpassed the gifted and talented mark, I had enough to be in the whatever the next level is, where you literally like change schools and go to like the gifted program or whatever called. Yeah. So I opted not to change schools, but to stay at my school and join that GT group. And so it was kind of like, that was the very first thing I can recall of like that goal-oriented thing. The second thing was Batman. I saw the movie Batman Begins on June 15th, 2005. I know the date because it's very significant. It inspired like the rest of my life in terms of like fitness and just that goal-oriented pursuit with a diligent mind toward helping others. That's what Batman does. He helps others.
Yeah, whatever. And I saw your YouTube video as well, like with the whole Batman costume. So we'll get into YouTube later, but like as far as like your fitness journey goes, like a lot of people know you for your fitness, right? So where did that all begin for you?
Yeah, so the very first starting point actually was exactly that. It was Batman. Like after I saw that movie, I don't know exactly how long after, but I distinctly remember physically dropping to the ground and doing push-ups, because that's exactly what Batman does in the movie. He wakes up at like 3 p.m. after a night of fighting crime. He physically drops to the ground and starts doing push-ups at like 3 in the afternoon. And so I started doing the exact same thing. Like I couldn't really do it very well being that young. Like I would just fall and just kind of actually fall. But I would do push-ups. And that's what started me out when I was like literally 9 years old. And so I just did push-ups and sit-ups of various varieties and numbers for the next like literally 6 years or so. Mm-hmm. I like experimented with like holding weights up, not knowing like what to do with them. But then at the age of 15, I kind of had the second milestone where I went to like a summer school PE camp. Again, me being like the nerdy kid, I didn't want to affect my GPA in high school by doing PE in school because it was an AP credit, so it'd be less GPA points. So I go to summer school PE. We do P90X there, which was insane because all of us are completely out of shape, and we do P90X, which is like the hardest thing ever. But that was another motivator for me. It was like, I can't physically do this. I want to get to the point where I can. So I did P90X all the way through at the age of 15, got in the best shape of my life. Did P90X 1, 2, and 3 over the next 3 years, and then at the age of 18, I'm in college now, and I feel like I'm too busy to do any sort of workouts. A lot of college kids fall into the same category. Like you just get overwhelmed by like how stressful college is. So I quit working out for half a year, and that really sucked because it's like I just mentioned, I've been working out for years at this point. I don't have a good understanding of how to combine fitness and nutrition at the time, but I still have that like active oriented mind, and I can't do it because I'm too busy, or at least I think I am. Then in March of my freshman year, at the age of 19, I started my first ever in-gym workout program, so like lifting weights in a gym, and that completely changed my life because not only did I like build my confidence in fitness, it was like I found kind of like this niche community, or not even a niche community, like anyone can be in this weightlifting community. It's just the matter of choosing to go to the gym, matter of choosing to learn how to lift weights there. And so I got in the best shape of my life, again, this time much more confident in like the way I looked and everything. And at that point I became a fitness coach. So now it's not only about me, it's about I need to be the best that I can be to inspire and motivate others. And then over the next 3 years I did various other weightlifting programs, continued building my strength, found out that I was good at like body weight stuff, which later fed into Ninja Warrior, and then years later it led me to create my own workout program. But it all goes back to that first Batman movie.
Wow, that's a handful of things right there. Well, let's backtrack a bit. You talked about when you came to college and, like for, what was it? I think it was like 5 months or 6 months. Yeah, where you like stopped working out completely, right? And that kind of takes a toll both on you mentally and physically. You talk about looking in the mirror. I've seen some of your posts where you're very transparent about being insecure about, one of the sides of your faces, right? Yeah. And that's something that most people won't just talk about. So are there any tips for you, any tips that you can give other people to be like more body positive about themselves?
Yeah. So kind of the root of all of that was when I was going through the first program or two in college, first like workout program, I was already in like that mindset of like I'm a fitness coach now, and I've made it known to the public that I am, but it's still like from an outside viewer it almost looks weird. It's like, why is this like 19-year-old kid posting shirtless pictures of himself? Especially like adults, people from my like past who like I knew through high school or my family knew. It's just like it's a very strange thing, and maybe it's not a strange thing. This is also, I should mention, this is what I'm thinking inside my head. It's kind of like I'm getting on myself about like kind of reflecting on what it is that I'm doing. And that like in a way made me a little bit insecure about posting things. This is back again in like 2015. And so I'm very reflective to the point where it's almost like hurting me at this time in my life. So it's like I would only post like maybe once a month or once every 2 months because I felt like I didn't have enough to offer on a daily basis But if I give myself, 2 or 3 months, I can go through a transformation. I can share information about that. And so that was like the first kind of like justification that I gave myself. Like, okay, maybe it's weird that I'm doing this, but maybe if I'm, showing long-term progress, I can inspire others to see the exact same way. But basically, I started worrying that my peers were viewing me in a weird way as well. Again, this is all inside my head. No one's telling me this. It's just like I'm thinking about, like, if I'm a random person on the street who sees Patrick online, what do I think about it? And so, like, again, that was kind of hurting me in terms of, like, how do I share this and feel comfortable about doing it? And honestly, I went through that same mindset for, like, 2+ years. It wasn't until I met other people like me, other people who were in this fitness space, sharing their stories and trying to really make it in the industry, that I realized, like, this isn't weird unless I'm the one telling myself that it is weird. And it was that kind of shifted the narrative. I'm now thinking of, it doesn't matter what the random person on the street thinks. They don't know my whole story. The people who choose to follow me, they're going to support me regardless of whether I post a shirtless picture, a transformation picture, or nothing at all. And so that's what I've adopted to make myself kind of more confident in this whole thing. And what's led me to be transparent is because I'm no longer trying to appeal to everyone. People can make their decisions about me however they want. I'm just going to do what I love and what I'm passionate about, and the people who are going to support me will support me regardless. And then the second piece of that, the specific reason for transparency, is because in the fitness industry specifically, it's like 90% of the things you see online are people saying like the most perfect things and posting the most perfect pictures with like really out there claims that just don't seem possible. And I didn't want to be a part of that. I wanted to be the most honest person I could possibly be, because from a business standpoint, it makes me more like relatable. And from like an ethical standpoint, I think it's the right thing to do. And so sharing every piece of my story is kind of the way that I've gone with that. Some people might think it's weird, but at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm sharing what I want.
Yeah, and so the reason why I brought that up is because I like recently started following you a few months back, right? And a lot of the times you're posting on Instagram stories, like, like large paragraphs, being very like open about not just about your fitness, but actually about what it takes to get to where you are, right? Like you talk about, hey, look, like it's not every day where I'm like grinding 24/7. I didn't do any work from this time to this time.
Yeah.
Like this is the reality of my situation. So what like not just led you to be that transparent, but like what advice would you give to people that are in a similar industry or in a different industry on transparency and how you can get to that stage where you're confident enough to share your story?
Yeah, so I think a large piece of it, like everything I just described so far, is kind of like the impact that I want to have on others through my transparency. But in terms of transparency for yourself, it's kind of like sharing everything forces me to be accountable. Not just like accountable to like making it to the gym, but accountable to like all of my goals and all of the steps that it takes to get there. Like what you were just mentioning there, like recently I decided to post on my story something that's been bothering me for a while, and it's that like I have this tendency to sit down in front of my computer and like almost start to work, and then I'll get sidetracked for like an hour or two, and then I completely lose motivation, and then I just like have no desire to like work toward what actually matters or what counts. And that hasn't happened just one time. It's happened multiple times. And so I just kind of thought to myself, one, I bet there's someone else out there who's going through the same thing, so I might as well share for that person. But two, I might as well share this because by making it known to the public, without anyone responding, I'm making myself accountable, because I don't want to be having to share that every single day saying like, oh, another day went by, 4 hours wasted, cool. But it's not that anymore. It's like I shared it once, so now I'm much less likely to do it again, to make that mistake again. And so if you're in the fitness industry or any other industry and you feel like you're not like making it toward your goals the way you want to, either share online publicly or share with like 1 or 2 accountability people or people who are going through the exact same goals that you are, and I guarantee you will be more productive because of it.
Okay, and so that, like, if we go on the opposite end where you're actually working and you're not procrastinating in those 4 hours, that means that a lot of people don't see, like, you don't post about, hey, look, I've been working for 4 hours,
yeah.
You know? So that brings a good point up about people that are actually doing big things, not at just UT, but in general, right? And they do a lot of things that most people don't see. So it brings up the idea of, like, sacrificing things, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't see the sacrifices you make, the sacrifices that anyone who's successful makes. So talk about some of the things that the public doesn't see, but that you do in, like, you know, like whenever you're going about your day-to-day life.
Yeah, so I guess I'll focus on a couple areas. So like one of the aspects of like my entrepreneurial things is YouTube. And I think that in a way, almost anyone who is comfortable in front of people would love to do YouTube on the face of it. But as soon as you get into it, it's not like as glamorous as people think, because people just see the videos. They don't see, like you said, all the behind the scenes work that goes into it. Like, the thing I can say first and foremost is every single video I put out, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes long, usually takes around 10 hours just to edit it. That doesn't include filming time, which is usually another 2 or 3 hours. So you're talking like a 12-hour commitment for one 5 to 10 minute video. And that's every single YouTube video. And you extrapolate that to all the videos I put out like 60 videos. That's like 700 or 800 hours of my time that I've put into just editing videos. And that's not glamorous. Like, what that looks like is, it's like 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. I'm in front of my computer. I'm like going over footage over and over and over again, making cuts, making the most interesting video elements come together, trying to figure out how to tell a story. I'm literally just like on Adobe Premiere, which is a computer program, and I'm just like making cuts, making edits, syncing things with music, adding captions. It's not the most glamorous thing, but it creates a product that is like, you know, a video, an edited video that people can enjoy, be entertained by, or be informed or educated by. And that's kind of like where I attribute the value of that time to. It's like, yeah, it kind of sucked. I had to, you know, use 12 hours of my time. But it's awesome to see the feedback I can get from that. People who maybe were having a really stressful day and now they get to enjoy or have, you know, 5 minutes of freedom just watching and enjoying video. Or if it's a fitness video, maybe they message me like, dude, that was an awesome workout. I tried it out. I'm dead. Whatever the case is. It's just like, it's a really cool feeling after it. But by far the hardest part is obviously like that grind phase where you're just sitting in front of the computer for hours and hours. And until you mentioned sacrifice, it's not just the fact that I'm sacrificing time to do this, it's what I'm sacrificing not being able to do because of it. Like, now with social media today, you can go on Instagram and like you see a million different Instagram stories, you click through, you see people having a great time, and it's like, oh shoot, I wish I was doing that, but I'm here in front of a computer editing for 10 hours.
Yeah.
And that is definitely hard, and it's not necessarily something that like goes away. It's not like, oh yeah, now I don't really care that other people are having a fun time. It definitely is like a constant thing. It's like, if you were on social media, you're going to see people having a good time. You're going to see friends doing things that you'd probably rather be doing than this in this very moment. But then what you kind of have to do is ask yourself the question, how much does this matter to me? And chances are your answer is going to be that the short-term temptations are not larger than the long-term goals. Short-term temptations being, oh, maybe I could have gone out and like partied with friends. Long-term goals being like, maybe I want to make YouTube or fitness my full-time career. Which matters more? Chances are you have a good answer to that, and you're just not willing all the time to make it. My challenge to you would be focus on that goal way more in the short term.
Okay, so there was a lot of information there, but one thing that I do want to point out is that you did do the 10-hour to 12-hour grinds, and I mean, I've done YouTube as well back in like middle school and whatnot, but the one thing that people don't understand about it, and I want you to talk about this, is that you're grinding without knowing whether it's going to work or not, right? Like, you started those videos, you weren't like, before when you posted your first one, it wasn't like, oh, immediately, like, you're going to get a bunch of subscribers. So talk about the mindset that goes into pursuing something without knowing, like, the end result. Because a lot of people are like, you know, I want to, this is very similar to how people act in the gym, right? It's like, you go the first day and, like, you look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, oh, man, I didn't get any progress. It's like the first day, right? So what's the mindset going into each of your goals when you're, like, pursuing them? What does it take to actually pursue that end result? Yeah,
I actually really like that parallel. I had never thought about, like, you know, the not knowing what you're going to get, whether it's fitness or YouTube. It's totally true. One, like, piece of background information I provide. So before I ever did YouTube, I did Facebook Live. If you're not familiar, it's just like you're talking in front of a camera in real time. Viewers can come onto it and watch you in real time. And that started off very awkwardly. It was like, I had things I wanted to talk about. Like, I wrote out, like, I want to talk about the 5 things I learned in college fitness or something like that. And, but it was weird because it was like I'd never talked in front of a camera before. But then the more and more I did it, the more it worked. And the reason that I highlight that is because, one, I went into that first video ever not knowing how it was going to be received. It was kind of like I had a mentor who just said, like, you need to do this. Like, it doesn't matter what you think is going to happen. Just try it, because the worst thing that happens is you never do it again. And that's true. So I went in with that mindset, and that first video I ever made got like 1,100 views. Had no idea that was going to happen. This was just on Facebook, you got to keep in mind. So this isn't something that's like being shared with the world. It's like my Facebook friends and maybe their friends too. So like over 1,000 views on this first video I ever did. So that kind of motivated me to like continue putting out content. It was like I got a lot of great feedback, and people were, you know, actually putting in time to watch me speak, which was really cool. So I did that for 8 months before I ever put out my first YouTube video. And along those 8 months, I had a couple people reach out along the way and say like, hey, I really like your live videos. I think you'd be good at YouTube. And that was very important for me because it was like YouTube was always like this cool idea to me. Again, I feel like everyone has some inkling toward like wanting to do YouTube in some way, but I had no idea how to do it or if I thought I could succeed. But having just those couple people say like, hey, I believe in you, that meant a lot. So I guess one small like sidetrack point of that is like, if you see someone like pursuing their passion, like definitely encourage them because you never know like when they might need that. So I had that. And then once like that 8-month mark hit, this was like the winter break following my sophomore year, I think. Might have been junior year, I'm blanking on timeline. But I'm home for winter break, and one of those guys who reached out to me and told me that like he thought I should do YouTube offered to teach me how to edit videos. And so like that was huge for me also because it was like did not have that skill set, and so he just sat down with me for like literally an hour and just taught me all the basics of Adobe Premiere, and that's all it took. And like looking back, that's insane to me. It's like it took a 1 hour commitment of my life and someone else's to like literally launch kind of a career in a way. And so then at that point, it is that grind phase now. It's like I don't know exactly what I want to do with this. I just know I want to create something that I can share with the world that will hopefully inspire people. Because I went in with the mindset of like just fitness. I didn't know what other types of videos I was going to put out. So putting out my very first video ever took 24 hours of editing time, not even just 10, because I had no background. Like I didn't have any skill. Everything was manual. I didn't know how to repeat things or copy things. Everything was very rigid and like I don't know what I'm doing this entire time.
Or are you like a perfectionist as well? Or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Like it was the kind of thing maybe I could have put it out after like 10 or 12, but like I wanted it to be perfect because it's my first video ever. And so it kind of is what you're talking about, where it's like I didn't know what it was going to come out of it, but I knew what story I wanted to tell. And it was just kind of like by the end of it, I was satisfied with the message that I'd put into it. And so then at that point, it was putting it out into the world, again, not knowing how many views it was going to get or anything, but knowing that those Facebook Live viewers were going to support me in some way or another. So I kind of like reached out to a lot of them and said like, hey, can you share this first video? I would love your support, starting this new thing. And that got that first video like, I think it was like over 1,000 views in like a couple days. And then I also gained like 125 subscribers in one day. Okay,
so then we went from like Facebook Live to YouTube, and then after that you talked about doing like classes at UT, right? So all of this funneled into one thing, and that's like your fitness program that you've been promoting for a while. It's Lyons, right? So talk about like the beginning stages of that, because a lot of people see you now like, oh, I have like 200 clients in 4 countries, right? But it was not like that before, right? Like how did it feel to get like your first client? How did you acquire your first client?
Yeah, so that has been like one of the coolest journeys of my entire everything. Like I just love what's happened with that because I have this distinct memory. I'm a Camp Texas counselor, which is like the intro camp for freshmen. And one of the questions that were asked in like small group, we go around the circle and answer a question, is like, what is like the biggest goal you have for yourself right now? And this was the summer before any of the line tread stuff ever happened. I said like, I want to come out with my own line tread at some point in the future. But I had no like definite like timeline. I was just like, at some point in the future, I want that to happen. And I think I said something like, it'll probably be like 5+ years. Because like realistically to me, that's what that would take. And so then what happened was I realized like I'm sharing stuff about my fitness constantly. And I'm like kind of following these entrepreneurial pages. And one thing that I keep hearing is this idea of like, jab, 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 hook.
That's like from Gary Vee.
Gary Vee, yeah. And the concept, if you're not familiar, jab, jab, jab is add value, add value, add value. And then the hook is market your product.
And ask,
And ask. Yeah. And so I realized that like for over a year, I had just been jab, 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 jabbing. It's like, what's the point of it if I don't like, if I'm not using this to like further my own, life or my own pursuits of career goals. And so I finally just like, I think I posted an Instagram story, and this was literally back in like September or October of 2017, before the Line Tread ever existed. And I was just like, hey, if you guys have like fitness goals, hit me up. I'd love to help. But I had no distinct like ask. It was just like very generic and broad. Like if you need help, reach out to me. And that definitely isn't the best way to go about it, but it's what I did. And so it was like I had a couple people reach out and be like, hey, I might be interested. And I didn't really have a definite plan. They didn't have a definite plan. And so like I basically just said like, hey, yeah, just like give me $35 and I'll make you a program. I didn't have a reasoning for the price. Definitely was undervaluing myself. I didn't know anything about value, but like it was the fact that I finally did something. I did that first hook, like the jab, jab, jab hook. And so then I had like by the time January rolled around, January was when I actually created the first ever fitness programs for people. I had like 6 or 7 people to make programs for, and that was over the course of like 2 or 3 months of just like saying like, hey, if you want a program, hit me up. Very generic, no name to it or anything. And so from January through mid-March, I had a total of like 11 clients. So you're talking like 3 months time, 11 clients.
And they're all paying you the $35.
I realized that 35 was too little. I can't remember exactly what I charged after that. I think it was like I went up a little bit, and then I realized that somewhere around like $150 felt like right.
Okay.
Based on, oh yeah, I saw a YouTube video of a guy who was like making fitness programs, and he was like, if you make your program 3 months in length, charge $100 because it's like about $1 a day. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So like that's the pricing I went with at the beginning. And so I did that, and then the reason why the Lyons Shred specifically came about is because I got the call in mid-February that I was going to be on American Ninja Warrior, which was like the coolest feeling in the world. But I realized at that time I was like at almost the heaviest I'd ever been. Not in a good way. Like I had a lot of muscle mass to me, but for Ninja Warrior, that's not necessarily always the best thing. You want to be as light and lean as possible. And so from mid-February to late March, I cut 10 pounds, and I did it very rapidly while preserving muscle mass. And I realized like, holy crap, like this works. Like what I just did, if anyone could do that, they would want to, basically. Like if they wanted to do that, they would. And so I realized that was a way that I could kind of launch myself into this space of like creating a very specific, customized workout program. Because I'd done the exact same thing for myself to cut 10 pounds. Why can't I do the exact same thing for other people? And so as soon as I got back from Ninja Warrior, like literally 2 or 3 days later, I launched the Lyons Shred, marketing it as the program that got me in the best shape of my life for Ninja Warrior. No one had ever marketed a program that way before, and I think that's why it really took off. Like, I had this massive surge of people wanting a program because like they saw my results, they'd seen my story over months of telling the journey. They probably might have seen me like months prior to say like, hey, if you want help on fitness, like hit me up, but, like very generically. Now there's a name to it. There's like a specific like potential achievement with it, you know, losing 10 pounds in like a very short period of time. Whatever the case, like they saw it, they believed it, and so they started reaching out. So that's how.
So is that like, so did that, all of that lead to I think a lot of people forget that you're actually like a mechanical engineer as well, right?
Yeah.
And like in all of the social media stuff, it's more focused on fitness, but on the side in this past semester you've actually built a cardio machine, right? And an upper body cardio machine. So talk about that. Like that's not, amongst everything else that you're doing, you also invented like your own machine. So talk about the thought process behind that. Was that like the next step after Lyons Shred, or where are you looking to take this?
Yeah, so the upper body cardio machine is called the punching pillow. And the punching pillow I actually came up with the idea for in, I believe, 2012. Literally when I was a junior in high school. It was like, I had this pillow with a target on the center of it, and I put it on my bed, and I was like an angsty teenager, so I like punched the pillow, and it like flopped away from me, and so I just like grabbed it, I put it back in place, and I kept doing that, and I realized I was completely out of breath from punching this pillow, and this kind of clicked in my head like, this could be like a cardio machine. And so like I told my teachers about it in high school, and they all thought it was cool, and I did too, but I had no idea like how to pursue it. So it just kind of went to the back burner for literally years and years. And then this senior design project rolls around where we are either asked to work for a company for free or propose our own idea. And I was like, I already have an idea. Why would I work for a company if I could just like work on this thing that I came up with a long time ago? So I had a team of 4 mechanical engineers who spent literally the entire last 4 months building an upper body cardio machine. We got $1,000 in funding from the engineering school, so we were able to purchase labor and materials and all of that, and now we have a fully functioning device.
So a lot of people don't know that, you know, you actually tried out for something that you've been talking about on social media for a while, which is Ninja Warrior, right? And you tried out in season 9 and you didn't actually make it. So talk about what went through your head and how you've prepared for season 11, which is now 2 years like from that point.
Yeah. So when season 9 rolled around, I was auditioning with no preconceptions. Like, I'd never done Ninja Warrior before. It was just like I'd done a lot of weightlifting and body weight training to the point where like I felt very confident in my physical abilities. I watched the TV show as a kid. I thought that everyone on the show was like superhuman, and I wanted to like try and prove to myself that I could do that. But I didn't have any concept of like what it actually takes. So I went with all of that, and I found an RTF friend, put together an audition video, submitted it, and a couple weeks later, I get a call from the casting producer, and he says, like, I really like you, I like your story, I like your personality, but you have no footage of yourself on obstacles. I think your application would really benefit from that. And so I found the nearest ninja gym, which was literally in San Antonio at the time. So I had to drive an hour and a half with a friend there, recorded myself in obstacles, and it was like the most fun thing I'd ever done. And that like completely validated my decision to like kind of start pursuing this. But ultimately, I didn't make it in season 9. So I was a course tester, which meant that like the day before they filmed the actual TV show, I got to run some of the obstacles, and I did well. And I had that footage now to like contribute to my story. At that point, I knew that like clearly what I did wasn't good enough to make it. So I need to get better. And so I started training more diligently. I started doing obstacle courses more often. I would travel to San Antonio like a couple times a month, just doing everything I could to like practice and prepare. And more so than anything, it was actually developing my story, because the casting producer said when I didn't make it, I have no way of knowing why you didn't make it because he doesn't get the final say. But if I had to guess, I would say it's probably because of your story. It's not that it's not good. It's not good enough. Like, think about like reality TV. You want to pull on the heartstrings of America. You got to find that thing in your story that allows you to do that. So that's like literally a conversation I had back in like February of 2017. It's been a month since I started my YouTube channel, so that gives me 11 months to develop my story through telling stories on YouTube. So I'm doing that while I'm training for Ninja Warrior in gyms, and then by the time season 10 audition video time rolls around, I have all this content from filming YouTube videos and all of this story development from actively thinking about it, and literally this physical strength I didn't have before. All of that went into that video and ultimately landed me a spot on season 10. That was in March of 2018.
Yeah, and talking about season 10, so you did end up making it, right?
Yeah.
And you ran the obstacle course. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so competing on American Ninja Warrior season 10 was like the most larger-than-life thing I've ever done. That's the way I always describe it, because it's like training in an obstacle gym is really cool, but it is nothing compared to like what the actual show is. Because in an obstacle gym, it's basically just like a normal gym where everything is just kind of like elevated a couple feet. You have mats below you, you're flying through the air, whatever. It's still really cool. But when you're on the television show, as soon as you step up for that first obstacle, the floating steps, you look out and like you see cameras, you see bright lights, you see water dangling like many feet below you, you see an audience of 1,000 to your left. The pressure is higher than anything you could possibly imagine.
So one thing I did see though while you were running that course was that like at the very top, like you stopped. I don't know if it was midway through, the video cut to it, and it's like you looked out into the audience and you looked out into those lights and you waved your shirt, right? So what was that feeling like?
It was amazing, dude. Like, it's the kind of thing where you tell yourself you want to envision your goal. And so like I'd envisioned this moment before, but I could not stop smiling because just nothing could beat the feeling of actually like fulfilling your goal, and like literally the biggest goal you've had to date, and like being in that moment, being surrounded by like friends and family to your left, and then like 1,000 other people who just love the show. There's just nothing better than that. And that's why like I get past that first obstacle and I couldn't help but just be the most excited I've ever been, and just like pump my shirt, rep the heart of a lion type thing. Gosh, it just felt so cool.
Okay, and like the mood changed really fast though, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we went from like, and I know this is a very touchy subject, but you were waving your shirt 1 minute, and then the next minute you were hit with the obstacle course and you were holding on. So what was like going through your head like as those like seconds rolled by? I know you talked about orbiting in the air on that obstacle course, so talk a little bit about that.
So the second obstacle is one called catch and release. Basically, you jump from a platform onto a bar, you thrust it forward into place, you walk your hands forward, and at this point you have to swing to another bar. And this is something that's known as a lache, where you swing your body and you leap off and you grab another thing. That general term is a lache. But historically, it's always done with like, almost always done with like a horizontal bar, where you jump and grab another horizontal bar. This year on the show, they literally inverted it 90 degrees, which threw me off completely.
Did they tell you about it?
No.
Oh,
I mean, you just find out like the day before, whatever. So it's like I'm prepared physically in terms of like I know how to lache really well, but I'd never thought about doing it like this. And so as soon as I start pumping my body, my entire body starts orbiting, and that basically means that I don't have core control, so I'm not able to like keep myself grounded in a forward direction. So I'm very worried in this moment about like flying off to one of the sides when I try and jump. The thing that really sucks is like looking back at the video, I 100% could have made the jump when I thought I couldn't. It's just like, again, going back to that pressure of that moment, and like how much pressure I'd put on myself for that moment, like the stakes of what this meant to me. All of that contributed to like why I didn't make the jump, because literally I thought that I was like in a full circle, but it was just like it was a little waver, and if I just jumped off, I could have made it.
Yeah, no, I was actually gonna mention that because you mentioned, like, you talked about, oh, you were like orbiting a lot, and I just saw you like moving from side to side a little bit. So yeah, that's why, like, I mean, you can go ahead and continue what you're saying, but I just saw that and I was like, you could definitely like.
The thing is, it's like in the first couple seconds after I got there, it was a tiny orbit, but then it was like I almost got so much in my head that like I started worrying about things, and then I started orbiting more, and then I actually couldn't have made the jump. So it was just like I could have done better, and it was like the pressure of the moment. But now, like moving towards season 11, it's like I've done so much to improve all of the things that held me back in that moment.
But how did you get through that first month? Because that's like from season 9, you trained like your butt off to like get into American Ninja Warrior. Now you're there, you're repping the Heart of Lion shirt, you're excited, and then you fall in the water, right? And that's probably like that contributes to your story a lot, because that's probably the biggest moment in someone's life where they either make or break their story, right? Yeah. And you decided to like take that route where you're gonna make it. So how did you get through that first month? Yeah.
So kind of the wild thing was when I had, like I was mentioning, envisioning the moment, I had kind of run through the possibility in my head of like, what happens if I do fall? Because I had I'd been training to win, not just to like make it, but I knew that it was possible that I wouldn't, make it to the end of it. But I'd never anticipated what it would actually feel like to like fall in the water and kind of like lose on like the goal that I had. But the thing that was surprising was like how little of amount of distraught I actually felt. It was like when I hit the water, it was like, I was disappointed, but it was like just such a happy feeling that I made it. Like that was, in that year at least, season 10, the goal was to make it first and foremost. And the fact that I did that was just so validating to like all the work that I'd put in and everything I'd believed in. And then it was like, they kind of like stick a camera in your face and ask you like, what happened out there? How do you feel? And it was like, I was genuinely happy. I was like, I mean, I wish I would have done better, but like, I just can't get over how happy I am. Like, that was so awesome. And then it's like, as soon as I go around, I met up with like all my family and friends and just like got to like hug all of them, thank them for like driving all the way from Austin to Dallas just to like watch those couple minutes of my life. And it was just like all of that mattered more than the fact that I fell. And so that was kind of like the spirit that I went into the next couple months with. It was like, it sucks that I fell, but like I love what I got to do, and now I just want to do it and do it better. And so like if I don't train, I'm not going to do that. And so,
I think that a prominent part of like people, well, right, regardless of what industry they're in, what they're pursuing, I think one big thing that like makes someone stand out is that you don't like mentally like beat yourself up, because that just makes it worse, right? If you like sat there and told yourself, hey, look, I'm just gonna like, whatever, like I made it and I like screwed up my one shot, like you wouldn't have been able to get to where you are, right? And I think you recently released like your audition for season 11, right? So talk about what you're thinking going into that now.
So I've started compiling footage for season 11 for my audition video. Haven't like quite put it together yet, but it's kind of like I'm filming for it constantly. I'm developing the story, and so kind of the mindset you have to go into with it is like, how has my story progressed since the past season? Because again, with it being reality TV, you have to think about like what story is going to appeal to America. And even though I didn't actually make the episode in season 10, the producers have seen my story, so the producers want like a new and improved story. So I'm thinking about in terms of like, how have I grown in the last year? What new elements have entered my life? So like 1, the Lion Shred, like I have all these clients now and I have this program that's helping people. 2, like I'm leaner and stronger than I've ever been. 3, I now have like a full-time job. Like all these things are coming together.
Where's your full-time job at?
Microsoft.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty pumped about it.
So, I mean, this just all leads to one thing, and that's like you're graduating in the winter, right? Yeah. So your time on the 40 acres is unfortunately coming to a close, but you're starting a new chapter of your life, right? So, A, what's next for you? And B, like, how are these past 4 years for you? Because, I mean, it seems like it's been like a phenomenal journey.
Yeah. So I graduate literally in like a week, which is just wild. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, the next step, I accepted a full-time job offer at Microsoft, which is awesome. I'm going to be in mechanical enclosures sourcing, which is a fancy term for a lot of things. And then I don't start that till July. So it gives me 6 months to do pretty much everything that I've wanted to do for so long. So I'm going to be pursuing fitness coaching through the Lion Shred, pretty much full time. I'm going to be doing YouTube. I'm going to be traveling around creating content, pursuing like all of my entrepreneurial endeavors for half of a year to build it up to a point where like it's a sustainable career by the time I actually get to Microsoft.
And I think one pointed question that a lot of people are going to ask is that you're saying that you're very passionate about these things, but you accepted a full-time offer at Microsoft. So you told me this off camera. I want you to kind of explain this so no one has any further questions. So why are you pursuing only for 6 months and then like accepting that full-time offer? What's like the goal there?
So I guess in one way, I've been pursuing these entrepreneurial things with like a full-time student position or a full-time career for the last like 2+ years in some way or another. So it's like all I've ever known is doing this like for a small piece of my life. I've never had the opportunity to just do it full out. And so I want to experiment with that and see what that's like. But I'm also reasonable enough to understand that like it might not work. And I want it to work, but it might not. And so I need to have, that sustainable career goal like in the future. But at the same time, it's like I've been studying mechanical engineering and like I definitely have a passion for all of like the math and science space as well. Microsoft is like my opportunity to also pursue that. And given the fact that like I've already done this for 2 years on the side, once I get to Microsoft, there's no reason why I can't do both. But long term, fitness is definitely what I'm most passionate about.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to go ahead and try out Patrick Lyons' Lion Shred program, it's going to be linked in the description below. Make sure you go ahead and follow him. He has a phenomenal journey, and make sure you share this with a UT student as well. Thank you so much for being on, man.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Crushing It. Welcome back to Crushing It. My name is Oh my god. Literally, this is what for him at Microsoft next year. It begins from him for him at Microsoft next year. And I love how you get all the cringe footage. It's actually so annoying. Like, why do you get to have all the cringe footage in your drive? Okay. Phenomenal journey here.